My name is Letitia Imara, and I'm with Black Liberation Fund. I'm gonna first start by explaining who we are. So Black Liberation Fund is a legally recognized 501c3 nonprofit charity organization in South Carolina, and we were formed as one of the first Black specific bail funds in South Carolina, June of 2020. You can go to the next one. So we specifically work with the Black community to get them the stigma of incarceration and the system of being disenfranchised, like Helen was saying, not Helen, Meredith was saying with what we have here in South Carolina. So what we do specifically, we provide low-cost bails and support and legal support to people in our area. We started with that right after the George Floyd protests because after everything happened downtown, buildings burned, things were broken into, whatever the case may be, a lot of those folks were arrested. So there are, I think they ended up with maybe 100 people that they arrested in relation. We bailed out about 30 to 40 of those people. And again, once you get arrested, those things stay on your record. So that's why we led into the next thing, expungement and pardons. And I'm gonna explain what those are, bails, expungement, and pardons. We also do things like this with ACLU, Black Voters Matter, and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, Know Your Rights and Voter Education, because again, a lot of our population doesn't know their rights when it comes to voting. And then we do incarcerated human rights advocacy. That means a lot of times in South Carolina Department of Corrections, we get a lot of calls about everything from housing, same thing with the ACLU, they get those calls too, about the conditions and how inhumane they are. Okay, go to the next slide. Go to the next slide. All right, so I'm going to go through this quickly because there's a lot of information. So what is a bail or a bond, right? So we started off as a bail fund, and I didn't know a lot of these things. In South Carolina, a bond hearing is required for every person who's committed a crime within 24 hours of arrest. That's how those things are supposed to work. And what ends up is that the bond may take two forms. Either the judge gives you a money bail or it gives you a PR. So again, if you've ever been arrested before and you've actually had to go to a bond hearing, the judge will judge your merit on whether you can actually be delivered home or actually stay in jail for a nominal amount, whether it's $400 to $1 million, generally in the state of South Carolina. So go to the next slide. All right, this amount is paid to the court and the person is released before trial. If they commit another crime before the trial date, the bond may be revoked and they are subject to detention, which means you go right back to jail. When the person makes it to court, no matter what the outcome, the bond is refunded to who paid it. Misdemeanor charges, which are normally nonviolent, tend to be much less than bond and can be considered tickets in some instances. And felony charges deal with more harsher personal crimes and may result in detention. So again, there's two different types of charges. A lot more of us are maybe arrested due to misdemeanor crimes than felonies, because generally when you have a felony, I think this is a 96% plea state. So it's a direct pipeline in Charleston, Greenville, Columbia, and I think Georgetown. They go straight to SCDC. So you go right from the jail. You wait a year, 2 years, however long it takes to have a hearing, a real hearing to be convicted, and you go straight to prison. The next thing is that a bondsman. So we are different from a bondsman. We are not a bondsman. I'll explain to you what a bondsman is. A bondsman is a person who can be paid to free a person from detention if they cannot afford the whole bond amount. The bondsman has taken a surety and in the state in the form of some type of insurance with, So with the state of South Carolina, they give a bondsman insurance to say that they can go and get somebody out of jail. Now, the bondsman may in turn come back and say, well, if your bond is $5,000, I'll take $500. You're never gonna get that money back. So once the trial is ended and the bondsman has discretion to rearrest for non-payment or other offenses. So let's say they deliver you home, they say $500 now, and if you don't have it, you can pay me in the form of $50 a week. you can't afford a $50 a week, they can possibly rearrest you and take you back to jail. So next slide. Black Liberation Fund, on the other hand, is a bail fund. We're different in that we pay bails in full, dollar for dollar, because we are not, number one, attorneys. We are not bondsmen, which means we are not insured to do this. We just do this by donations and community support. So we pay bails in full when we can, because again, the state of South Carolina has very large bails, or we supply legal support to those that cannot afford bail. And we do this to reduce the risk of rearrest by taking away the monetary concern if we pay the bail. We support, if we can't do that, we support the community member with social and legal resources so they successfully do not reoffend due to financial stress, carceral stigma, or lack of knowledge, which means that jail doesn't necessarily affect your life financially because you have to pay a bondsman $10,000, or your mom had to pay $10,000 to a bondsman and she loses the house or something like that. If bail cannot be paid for the person, we provide community or legal support to ensure the community member gets a fair, speedy trial, thus shortening the length of detention without trial. So there are some people I work with where I couldn't deliver a bail. So we work with the public defender and helped get PTI, so pretrial intervention, where they are out, so to speak, but they just have to go to some type of program or class or something such as that. Because sometimes you just need somebody to work with the lawyer. Go to the next one. An expungement. So that is all pre-trial. So that's before you go to jail. So when you come out of jail or you come out of the arrest, you go to court, whatever that is, you have a charge that's on your record. And that's why people either think that they cannot vote, that they have a hard time getting jobs, or other kind of vocational, I guess you could say, licenses that are required. So we provide expungements. So what is an expungement? Is a court order that removes something from your criminal record. It's also called an order for destruction of arrest records. Expungement works only for minor or first-time offenses. Major offenses cannot be expunged. Go to the next slide. All right, and these are some of the types. Go to the next one. Okay, so all of the types come with conditions, and it's a non-inclusive list, and always seek legal advice, because again, you can have one of these types and it be a very different story if it's the third, if it's the fifth, if it's the whatever the case may be. So each of them are different, and each of them require different conditions to even get the expungement itself. So we have one that's called pretrial intervention. Like if you go to PCI, the class, and it's their first time offense, something like that, you might can get expungement. But these are all the types of them. So pretrial intervention, alcohol education, traffic education program, first offense misdemeanor conviction under the Fraudulent Check Act, first offense simple possession of marijuana and other certain illegal drugs, first offense conviction for a crime carrying a penalty of not more than 30 days imprisonment or a fine of $500, first offense conviction for failure to stop when signaled by law enforcement vehicle, and first offense conviction as a youthful offender or juvenile offenses. Now, I'm gonna pause right here, and I'm just gonna say that South Carolina is only one of 4 states that does not completely clear somebody's record after they're finished serving their time. There is no such thing as completely cleaning your record until you start going through the process one by one, things like that. So other states, they have a process where you can just work on it one time and things like that. It's a longer, more convoluted process than it is anywhere else. So there's a fee for an expungement. It's $250 to the solicitor's office in your area. It's a $25 fee for the sled check. It's a $35 filing fee to the clerk of court. In Charleston, in my county, All of these things are required to get an expungement, and it ends up to being like $340. So there's no refund if the charge is not eligible for expungement. So that's why I always suggest seek legal advice, or at least somebody else who's done it before, advice before you fill out these forms. Okay? And I noticed that Mr. Gamble has this expungement packet. So a lot of this same information is taken from this website that can be found online. So there's, I think Appleseed and the ST Bar Association provides details about the types of expungements, which you can read, but I can't go over it because I'm not a lawyer and I can't give legal advice. So the next slide, if you go, and about what is a pardon. Now, expungement is different because that was misdemeanors. A pardon is what's necessary for a felony or any type of things that aren't eligible under the expungement law. So it's a grant by the state of South Carolina that excuses a person convicted of a crime from its legal consequences. It does not erase a conviction, it just ends the penalty. So a pardon ends the penalties and punishment that results from the crime, and it restores the civil rights of someone that is convicted of a crime. So it restores your right to some offenses, to own, like a gun, to vote, to have a certain occupational license, the rights that were initially taken from you when you became incarcerated in prison, not just jail. How is a pardon different from an expungement? An expungement can wipe clean a criminal record, so it takes it completely off. It removes any reference of it. A pardon is different. The original conviction stays on the criminal record after a pardon, and an individual must still acknowledge their conviction. A pardon does not affect sex offender status. So basically, your charge is on there, and they say that you've been pardoned by the state of South Carolina on your record. Okay, so you still, unless we do something like ban the box, which is suggested by Lester Young in his program, you still have to check that box and list the offense. But when you have the record, it'll show the pardon on there. And again, like I said, you still get some of these rights restored. Go to the next one. All right, so it's a grant by the state that excuses a person convicted of a crime from its legal consequences. It does not erase it, it just ends the penalty. Go to the next one. All right, so when can a person apply for a pardon? There are certain requirements for different situations. Probationers can apply after discharge from supervision. That means if you're on probation, when probation ends, you can take your paperwork and then try to apply for a pardon. If you're on parole, after the parole ends, you have to wait 5 years, I believe, and then apply also for your pardon. If you're discharged from a sentence, so discharge is if they somehow not probation you, not parole you, but release you from the system of incarceration. And then an inmate with a terminal illness is eligible when life expectancy is less than a year. So when you're about to die, they can pardon you. You can apply, is what this is suggesting. So it doesn't necessarily say that you get it, it's suggesting that you can apply, excuse me. So how do you apply? You submit the application, you have written letters of reference, $100 fee to the Probation, Parole, and Pardon Services Board, and the application is online, and you can also have it in printed form and mail it into them if you, well, I think that's basically the way you do it, because you have to have the letters, you have to have other references. Yeah, oh, okay, Mr. Gamble gave you some. So you would send all of that in with a cashier's check for $100 to the pardon board. Okay, they review your application, they perform an investigation, and they schedule a hearing. So it normally takes about 7 to 9 months or something like that. So go to the next one. Go to the next one. All right, so if you want to get in touch with us, this is our contact information. We can give out our brochures also to add to your piles of things. I also work with Black Voters Matter. So these cards right here, We have t-shirts to go with them, but you have to text "It's on us" 25225 or use this QR code. Yes, ma'am.
What's the difference between probation and parole?
Parole,
It's coming out of prison. Parole is coming out of prison. Probation means that you did not have to go to prison all the time. Sometimes you can be sentenced to a sentence that has probation after the sentence, but a parole is actually you're getting released from prison early. That's the difference.
mm-hmm. Did you want to add some?
Oh, I got a whole nother spiel.
Okay. No, because that's good information. And so Black Voters Matter, they're a bipartisan voting. This is a part of another what we do. It has on here the dates that are necessary for voting in this state. So October 11th is when voter registration ends. So please make sure you're registered by that day. Text this to get a free t-shirt. We have plenty over here in all sizes, extra large, mediums, large, whatever it is. You can take the pledge to help other people vote or check to see if you're registered to vote by texting that link, okay? All right.